La. Hello. How are ya? Good to see ya. Good morning. I woke up way too early this morning, so I decided to do this last live stream of Lake of Voices. So we give a moment for stream and chat to wake up. I do a few little sound checky things, and then we'll get started. Well, that's all the sound checky stuff done. That was easy. Right. Lake of Voices. So in the first episode, we tried to just make sure that our main two guys got across. And then in the last episode, we made sure that Lou got across. Which meant that, yeah, we kept dying. But we got Lou across. This episode, we're going to try and get Margaret across, I think. I think that's what we're doing. Try and get Margaret across. So if you haven't seen, we're going to be skipping over a lot of the dialogue that is the same as what we've already seen. So if you haven't seen the starting bit here that we're about to skip over, go and watch those. After the live stream, go and watch those. Basically, we're coming up to a big scary lake.
Have you seen it before?
Need to get the guide to lead us across. And we're going to meet Margaret and Lou and the guide. This is Bemele, and then we're Kika. I think Kika's our name. Kika's a good name. Bemele breaks the silence, either sensing my unease or assuaging his own. I hope it's the latter.
I haven't.
Yeah,
I've had no reason to go near this cursed lake until now. What have you?
Bemele scratches his chin casually, as though I asked what his favorite food is.
I traveled the long way around it once before. Not so pleasant. Something about it just frays your nerves. Although, even being near it is enough.
So I'm not the only one who feels it. A sense of relief hits me, but not enough to undo the buzzing of anxiety. The lake, sinless. Most try their best to avoid it all their lives. The hundreds who die attempting to cross its unearthly black water, dragged to death by the creatures lurking within, aren't exactly a secret.
No wonder you were assigned this mission.
There are a few who've had first-hand experience with the place, even if from a distance. He'll probably be picked whenever they need someone to cross, for however long he's with us. Bemele shrugs, bringing my attention back to the dark path.
At least we're taking the bridge this time. It'll only take 2 days instead of double that, and the sooner this place is behind us, the better.
It would be preferable not to risk it. But time is of the essence. We don't really have a choice.
So in the last playthrough I did in the last episode, we did have a choice. We decided to walk around it. By the time we got to the town on the other side, which is what these two are doing, they're walking around, walking to the other side of the lake to save a town that's being attacked by barbarians. So last time I made them walk around, and by the time they got there it was too late. Oh, here we go. If I'd just shut up, we would have got to it quicker. One of our allied villagers, Hemeo, is being harassed by brigadiers, a band of ruffians. We don't have many guards to send as an assist, only Bemele and myself. The least we can do is arrive before we're too late to be of any use. Yeah. These kind of squabbles happen often, but have to be put down lest they turn into a blood grudge or an all-out war. The last we heard, neither option was that
I can
far
also
off.
see why they chose you to come out here.
I glance at Bemele, an eyebrow raised. A slight smile plays across his lips.
You're always so calm and so serious. Nothing can get to you. You're the best choice they had.
A smile now tugs at my own lips. I would like to thank him, but that wouldn't be so calm and serious as he just described. And if that's how he sees me, I'd like to keep it that way. Malachi's reaction only makes his smile grow, and he chuckles a bit more before refocusing on the path. I do the same. It wouldn't be right to let my guard down in a place like this. Bemele appears to feel differently, however.
You know the town on the other side of the lake, though. It's not so similar to ours. If all goes well, perhaps we'll have enough time to enjoy the new area.
1 second. I'm gonna quickly do a thing that'll make me not look like... Despite the fact that I had frozen. Now I don't look like I've frozen. So now we'll wait for that to come across to the chat. Or come across to the stream, because there's a little bit of a delay. Moving on. For the most part, I ignore him, nodding when applicable. Bemelay is a talkative sort, and if chatting helps keeps his worries down and his sword hand ready, I have no complaints. After a time, the thick fog surrounding us begins to clear. A slick wooden dock comes into view, and with it the sound of water gently lapping as it sides. Bemelay shifts beside me, stretching his lantern arm as far as it will go. He seems tense.
Someone's already here.
Ba-ba-ba! So yeah, this is... I'm going to say her name is Margaret, but I can't remember. This is Margaret. This is who we're trying to get to survive this episode. So every other time I've played through, we've killed Margaret off pretty early, because we've been focusing on other players. This time, we're going to try and get Margaret across in as many ways as possible. Evidently, she has the same question as we step up next to her. It's clear she isn't simply passing by. She nods. She's waiting. The stranger nods curtly to us. Yeah, it is Margaret.
Kika the Steadfast.
Bemelay. Hello?
There's a stuffy silence as Margaret turns to gaze out across the lake, expression unclear with not much to say. Bemelay and I do the same. From here, the black surface of the lake looks disarmingly calm. Wind rushes across its surface, a sound like whispering. Though perhaps it actually is whispering. I concentrate trying to place the difference, searching for breaks and rhythms. After a few seconds, I feel foolish. It doesn't matter what the noise is, whether I hear them or not. We're not alone. The Nixie are out there. A feeling that I can't quite shake tells me they've already noticed our little group of people on the shore. It feels hostile. My stomach sinks. And instead, I address Bemelay.
Where is the guide?
Unless he's on the center island, or on the complete other side, your guess is as good as mine. It's dark as pitch out there.
Panic rises inside me. Panic I try hard
We can't
to
cross
quell.
without him, and we need to get going soon.
You can't cross with him either.
Ew. The woman behind us, Margaret, cuts in with something like
What?
a snort.
I know the guide will be here tonight. I have already made arrangements with him to cross.
Bemelay and I share a look. The woman seems haughty and willing to put up
I
a
have
fuss.
his word he'll take me today. It would be wiser for the two of you to begin the trip around if you're really in such a hurry. Or you can make camp here and wait for him to make the trip back if you prefer.
I don't need to turn my attention to Bemelay to know he's getting riled up. I step in before he can say something rash.
Even if that is so, my companion and I must begin the trip tonight.
Margaret is unimpressed and opens her mouth to argue further.
We'll wait for the guide to arrive before coming to a conclusion about any of this.
She clamps her mouth shut and lets out a sigh.
You can do as you like.
So this is why I've let her die every single time. I don't like her. But this time we're going to try... We'll skip
With
through
a
this
mouth
because this
like-
is
How
the same
do you-
that
I know.
we watched
The
at the
guide's
start of
father
every
is
episode.
carving the example.
All the stuff before we get up to the same choice. There we go. I skipped a choice by accident. Good work. We each remain locked inside our own thoughts, not another word passing between us. Eventually a small light appears on the bridge ahead, gently swaying through the foggy air. It gets closer and closer, until it becomes apparent it's a figure carrying a lantern. That must be the guide. Although I can't shake the ghostly aura it gives off. The figure steps onto the shore, but we wait for him to approach us instead of going to meet him. None of us are sure how close to the waters we can get before it's no longer safe. He stops in front of us and simply stares.
Are you the guide of Sinlos?
The man nods. He has a sharp face and
Well,
weary
that's
eyes.
grand. We would like an escort across the lake.
Bemelay motions to the two of us, and Margaret approaches, a strange smile on her face.
Hello, it's good to see you again. I'm ready to cross, as we've agreed upon.
The guide turns to face her as well, his face remaining unchanged. It must not be a lie. He would have had to say something otherwise. She really does have preference to travel with him, and that's a problem.
Is there a way we can all begin the trip tonight?
Yes, I will allow all three of you to go. But with that many, at least one will die before we reach the other side.
I furrow my brow as a disturbing addendum, and one offered with little emotion attached. 1 second, I'm going to yawn and have a sip of water. Without asking... Bemelay glares back, asking without asking what we're supposed to do with such circumstances.
You should go around.
The sentence hangs in the air, the second half unspoken, if you want to live.
We don't have time for that! There are people counting on us for protection. Why does she need to go?
He jerks a finger at Margaret, whose face contorts with anger.
I don't need to explain myself to you. My journey has already been put off once, and I was promised I could go today. I will be going under any circumstances.
She meets Bemelay's eyes with a gaze of steel. He starts to speak and she cuts in.
An extra day or two shouldn't be that much of a problem for you. Whoever you're meeting can surely wait such a tiny amount longer. Patience is a virtue, after all.
Last time I tried to go slow, I ended up getting the entire village killed.
The night is only so long, and if we're still on the bridges when the sun comes up, we'll all die.
Guard is dispassionate and stoic. Bemelay pulls me to the side.
That woman isn't armed.
His voice is low. His darts a glance at
We can
Margaret.
easily get her to back off if we make this into an actual fight. After all, we have to go tonight, yes? If one of us really is to die, it'll be her. Would staying be a worse fate than her death?
That is true. Every single time I've played, she has died. I stare at the dock, refusing to meet Bemelay's eyes, and try to keep my voice as level as
We
possible.
don't know her situation. This isn't a decision we can make for her.
What?
Bemelay leans in closer, apparently having missed what I said. I remove the sympathy for her in my response when I speak again.
The guide won't accept something like that, I assume.
His face is grim.
Then what else do you have in mind?
First of all, you and I cannot split up. Either we both stay, or we both go.
Right. That's not a question.
I cross my arms, a hand on my chin. I have full confidence in my abilities, and in Bemelay's, but there's no reason to believe the guide... there's no reason not to believe that the guide knows exactly what he's talking about. If we go, he might not be able to give the group the attention we each deserve, and that would mean we truly would be putting Margaret's life at risk on top of our own.
And I believe you.
So we have to go. Last episode I walked around, and as I said, it didn't work very well.
We shouldn't waste more time. Let's shove off.
Alright, so we're going. Place a hand over his. Got a dude behind you, Bemelay. So this is, yeah, skipping through the stuff that we've seen in other episodes now. I feel Bemelay start as I reciprocate his touch, but just as quickly a smile replaces his shock. The moment is pleasant, a small balm against a large burn. I harden my expression and Bemelay follows suit. He moves his free arm down, I fully link his arm with mine, and now properly settled, look forward. Margaret is following the guide with some reluctance, turning back every so often to check on us. I wave my lantern to signal that we're catching up. So this dude behind us is a stalker, and he's creeping along, so Bemelay needs to walk backwards and keep an eye on him, so that's why we've linked arms so I can lead him. Margaret returns her head to the front and quickens her pace. With a tug on Bemelay, we start to follow them. The four of us continue cautiously over the bridges, only this time the wet, squishing footsteps of the prowler join the sounds of our own. In spite of myself, I grip Bemelay tighter. The prowler walks with a set pattern, sometimes fast, sometimes without set pattern, sometimes fast, sometimes slow. It takes long steps, then short ones. At times it stops walking entirely. Does it hurt it to be out of water like this, or is it just trying to be difficult to read? Suddenly, the whispering lake grows louder. I steel myself, trying not to let it get to me. The most important thing in a situation like this is to remain calm. I can't lose my head. Then, all at once, I notice the guide and Margaret have come to a halt.
Bemelay, they're stopping.
Bemelay slows down as I do, and as we near Margaret's back, she says something akin to distress.
There's another one.
I tug on Bemelay and he understands. We draw up close to Margaret, ready to protect her if need be. The guide holds out a hand.
Don't get any closer.
Hello. He's in the background going, "Oh, look at you. Who are you? Can I eat you?" Just over his shoulder, I see another prowler stumbling towards us, white liquid dripping from its eyes. The guide's hand turns over in the air.
Give me a lantern. We'll throw it.
Margaret extends her own with a trembling hand when Bemelay speaks instead. His back.
If you have to take someone's, take mine.
Yes, an extra light won't do us much good when we're standing this close together.
Margaret takes Bemelay's lantern from him, guarded relief displayed on her features.
Thank you.
She hands the lantern to the guide, whose hand grips it tightly, knuckles growing pale.
Stay here. I can't throw it too far, or the light will blow out before it reaches the Nyx.
He steps closer to the monster, his movements light and confident. Good morning. Hello. As he nears, the prowler starts to back away. Is it only the approaching light that's making it retreat, or are they afraid of him? The guide is far enough away from us that the fog is partially obscured by him, hiding his movements. The voices from the lake grow louder and louder. Water suddenly begins to splash out across the lake in the distance and onto the edges of the bridge. They want him to mess up. I don't notice how tense I am until Bemele eases my grasp on his arm. Then suddenly the guide takes multiple long and fast strides, throws the lantern and jumps backwards to regain the lost distance. Shh. There's a sharp hiss and a deep splash. The voices of the Nixie grow quieter. Not silent, but quieter. A sigh escapes me and the guide looks back to our
We should keep going, before it comes back.
I glance at Bemele and realize he too is looking relieved at the guide before us. And then I see it. The first prowler is still there. It's right there. Pull Bemele forward. I shift around, pulling Bemele behind me. The prowler lunges after him, barely missing Bemele, but striking my lantern instead. The fire goes out and the two of us are plunged into an unearthly darkness. Then there's a slick splash. I realize the Nyx has retreated into the water. Somehow Bemele and I are still standing. We're still here.
Kika, thank you.
You're welcome. I can't respond. Something cold and wet and slimy has grabbed my ankle. Kick it off. I kick my leg out as far as I can and the Nyx hold slips. It can't pull the momentum I've gained against it. Margaret rushes to my side, her lantern hanging out towards the Nyx. The light brushes its face. We see it for an instant, its eyes wide, and then it slides back into the smooth water of the surface. Bemele grabs Margaret and I both, helping us towards the center of the bridge and cussing under his breath.
I only looked away for 1 second.
1 second.
It's fine, Bemele. We're all fine.
Are you actually all right?
Margaret cocks her head down, examining my ankle. There's nothing but a wet smudge around my trousers. I say that, though I don't actually want to let go of Bemele. I need to in order to relight our lantern and provide us actual safety, but I feel such a strong desire not to be alone in this moment. I shake my head roughly and let it go, relighting the lantern as fast as I'm able.
Kika, thank you. Again. You saved my life. I won't let this happen again.
Yes. Yes. It would be good for all of us to pay more attention.
Margaret nods solemnly. Suddenly, it seems like we're all on the same side. It is only Bemele and I. She is with us in more than simply presence. The guide's voice, as cold as that monster's grasp, ends my train of thought.
We lost the lantern I threw. The Nyx grabbed it after the light went out.
Margaret makes a noise. I glance over, wondering whether she's upset. There's a small smile on her face instead.
It's better than them taking anything else.
That is true. A nervous laugh bubbles up out of me and just as quickly stops. Bemele chuckles in response, and our collective tension eases up, the adrenaline draining from our bodies.
We need to keep walking.
The guide starts down the bridge again, and we join him. I try to clamp down on the relief. The ease that wants to flood my head is not over. The prowler is gone, but so is Bemele's English is fun when you get the hang of it. Luckily, I speak fluent dyslexia. The prowler is gone, but so is Bemele's
You
lantern.
can stay near me, Bemele, since your lantern is lost.
I appreciate it.
Margaret goes on ahead of us. Bemele stays by my side as I keep at the end of the line. The breath of release for Margaret and Bemele is quickly swallowed by a somber atmosphere of Sinlos as well, replaced by the gravity of the near-death experience. Never mind celebrating his survival, something like that shouldn't have happened in the first place. The memory of the prowlers reaching out towards us is there each time I
Why
close
does
my
it
eyes.
look like something's dripping down their faces?
Because they're crying. The prowlers are on Margaret's mind too. Looking at her pained expression, it's as though the moment of relief never existed
I'm not
at all.
sure.
Me neither. Something's wrong with them, though. They live in water. Air shouldn't be good for the things, but they want to drown humans so much they're willing to drag themselves around on land? It's not right.
Of course it isn't. They're monsters. They likely do not understand even the concept of right and wrong.
Well, I don't disagree that there's something very wrong about them. I truly hope that's the last we'll see of the prowlers.
Something comes to her mind, causing Margaret to end her part of the conversation early.
Since you two have to share a light, wouldn't it be safer to be in the middle?
Margaret stops and waits for Bemelay and I to reach her
That
position.
way, you'll catch the edges of my light and the guides, and it won't be so dangerous if Bemelay loses his position momentarily.
That's a very kind offer, Margaret.
Bemelay's surprise is so apparent. I want to cover his face with my hands to stop him from insulting her. She merely smirks. I think Margaret may be surprised with herself too. Bemelay returns to his usual
As
surety.
thoughtful as it is, I, at least, am fine with bringing up the rear. I'm used to keeping watch for monsters, and since there are two of us, I can pay attention to the back while Kika focuses ahead. It's not my light, though, so I shouldn't be the one to decide what she should do with it.
Margaret and Bemelay turn to look at me in unison. It seems like this is going to be my decision. We're going to save here, because this is a branching point that I need to do a few things at. So, to begin with, we are going to stay at the back, and the next time, after that plays out, we'll put her in the middle. See how we go. Neither of them are wrong. As for me, my goal is to protect everyone. I can't very well do that with Margaret following behind us. But being stuck in the middle of the group could also be dangerous depending on the circumstances we come across. Being pincered by the enemy would be an almost sure death, no matter how experienced Bemelay and I are. I just don't know what to expect from this bridge, and that makes things so much more difficult. Yeah, we're going to stay
So
up
you're
at the
staying
back this time.
behind?
Yeah.
Seems like it.
Yes, I think we'll be good here. But really, thank you. That was a very kind offer.
Well, all right.
Margaret respects our decision and trots ahead a bit to catch up with the guide. He has paid no attention to the entire affair.
So, I don't want to sound like a child, but how much longer until we arrive at the halfway point?
Margaret chuckles, reflecting the amusement that I don't want to vocalize.
We still have some ways to go.
Damn.
I suppress my laughter yet again at his pouting response. The gloom we've been under dissipates slightly, like the light flickering
The
through the
first
fog.
trial tends to be the most difficult. I believe we will only react better from this point on.
I like the way you think.
What is it about Margaret's voice that makes me yawn? Ah, Margaret's put me asleep. Then a gleam enters Bemelay's eyes and he
I
grins.
think Kika deserves a round of applause. Her quick reflexes are owed the utmost appreciation.
He leans softly into my shoulder, trying to get me to what?
It was indeed a sight. You're quite capable. Bemelay was also a sight, but for very different reasons. The way he froze with his mouth all agape was a laugh.
Shush, we've read this. Bemelay shakes a fist at Margaret in mock anger, then
You
shoots me
should
an
know,
affectionate look.
she and I are usually on equal footing.
The only reason you had footing at all is because she pulled you back.
Bemelay laughs self-consciously, scratching
That's
his
very
head.
true. You can always count on Kika.
Every time. I keep my eyes steadily ahead, unsure of how I should respond. I'm pleased, almost grateful to hear what they think of me. But I don't know what I could say that wouldn't seem pathetic. Instead, I contribute the best way I can. I keep my focus on the path ahead of us. Without a response from me, the conversation quickly dies out. Still, it eases my heart to be on such friendly terms with my companions. After some time, I notice Margaret isn't keeping up with the guide as much as she was before. Cody Plays is back! Welcome, Cody Plays. This time we're going to try and save Margaret. So I think you were here last time, which is when we were trying to save Lou and getting everyone killed. This time we're trying to save Margaret. How are you, buddy? I realize it's because the guide has increased his pace. Margaret begins to jog in an effort to keep up with him, and Bemelay and I do the same. Despite this, the guide keeps getting further away. We go faster and faster until suddenly we're full on sprinting across the slick wooden boards. Figures in the dark fog fly past at a blur, and it occurs to me the branching paths in the bridge appear to be sinking. I try hard to swallow my rising panic. The guide shouts something, but is drowned out by the frantic pounding of our footsteps. I'm trying to piece together what he said. Don't, stop, turn, when he takes a masterfully sharp a masterful sharp right down a different path, using his own momentum and the sleek wood to slide the new direction with no loss of speed. Good chili. Is that what you're eating? A good chili? Or you're just hanging out for a good chill? I say good chili. I'm glad. Chili's always good. Margaret must not have worked out the warning either, as she completely caught off guard by the guide's changing course. She runs straight ahead past the turn and continues down the path we've been following up until now. So when you put her in the middle, she misses the turn. When she's at the back, she makes it. She clumsily begins to halt her momentum down the wrong bridge. When I come upon the fork, turn. I make a hard turn, following the guide and leaving Margaret at the rear. Beverley's footsteps stay as loud as they were before. He made the turn as close behind me as ever. Out the corner of my eye, I see Margaret turn around to try and come back to us, only to have the bridge in front of her fall away. I slow down for a breath, feeling the impulse to turn back but ignore it. There's no time. Margaret can make the jump and then she'll rejoin us. I keep my eyes glued to the guide's back, ears perked for Margaret's footsteps approaching behind us, and then I hear it, a scream. I whip around, sliding to a stop. Margaret is sinking. The bridge she's on is sinking into the water. She's disappearing. She didn't jump.
What are you doing?
Margaret's head shoots up, her face drained of all color. She stumbles near the end of the bridge, staring at the placid water of the lake. Even from a distance, I can see her shaking. I can't say if it's from the bridge's descent or her own fear. She barely seems to be able to remain standing. I swallow painfully. Margaret bends and tries to jump. She curves in a small arc, achieving more height than she should, and lands directly in the lake with a muted splash. Bimile starts beside me, but I grab his hand and pull. We start running again, leaving Margaret flailing in the water behind us. We don't need to watch this. We both know exactly what will happen to her now. Margaret's anguish cries pierce the night, then the screaming stops. My legs grow weak. It isn't right, but I push myself to keep going. Bimile curses between heavy breaths, calling those foul things every name in the book. I try to focus on the pounding of my feet, but my brain won't cooperate. Instead, I imagine Margaret's terror as she's clawed to pieces by the Nixie. After everything, I didn't help her. We left her in the dark. Alright, so now we've got to reload up to put her in the middle. Load the file. So this time we put Margaret in the middle. Put Margaret at the back.
Thank you,
that way she makes the turn.
So, I don't want to sound like a child, but...
back up. Put a hand out to stop him. Do nothing. Do nothing? I can't risk it. Margaret and Bemile stare at the man as he leaves. We all watch him drag his little frame down the bridge, quickly fading from sight. Oh yeah, this is Lou. So we don't want to save Lou this time anyway, because that ends up getting Margaret killed. We had to let him go. We've only barely been surviving ourselves. The space the man vanished into is dark and silent. We can see and hear nothing of him, not even his footsteps.
Maybe we should call him back? We can at least give him directions. Tell him what paths we've been taking.
It's not going to make any difference. We can't give directions when the bridges we were on might very well have sunken away.
We shouldn't focus on what might become of him. He has his own path to follow, and we ours. We should focus on what we're doing now.
Of course, it's not really a might, but we have to get through this somehow, and being weighed down with guilt will only distract us. The guide starts moving again at a quick pace. After a moment's hesitation and one last glance into the truly lifeless fog, we run to catch up with him. We walk onwards in silence. Our party hasn't changed. The stranger was never added to it, so it's not as if it makes sense to miss him. There's a sense of loss all the same. No one even attempts mirth. So the stranger was Lou. We saved him last time. I keep thinking I should have done more, or should have pushed the guide harder to change his mind, so that it was less dangerous to keep the man around. Something, anything. But I have to let this go. I'm not going to forget that man. I'll never forget him. But we still need to get through this. I curl my hands into fists, hoping it'll strengthen my resolve that I push forward. We turn down a different path and the guide stops. Ahead of us stands a group of prowlers. At the sound of us, they turn their heads in unison, as if they knew we were coming. I inhale.
Not again.
The prowlers wriggle somehow, their skin moving more slowly than it should, sliding across their skeletons, and they laugh.
We already lost a lantern and it's only our first day. We can't keep doing this.
Yes, we can't lose a lantern at this point. We're almost to the island.
The guide rummages through his coat with his free
What
hand.
are you planning?
Bimele's tone is borderline threatening, but the guide ignores him. He pulls out a small pouch, then opens a latch on his lantern.
Wait, are you going to throw that at them? What if the bridge sets on fire?
It will. We're going to run.
This is insane! These bridges are hellish enough without them also being on fire. And what about the other man? If he's still out there, this could...
He's dead. We're not losing another lantern.
Very matter of fact there, dude. He says it with such there we go. He says it with such detached certainty. It's as if he saw it happen himself. No one argues with him. The guide steps closer to the prowlers. We fall into step behind him, staying close to his back. He bends his lantern back down until it's lowered into his outstretched arm. The pouch in his hand is set aflame. With a practiced flick of the wrist, he swings the staff back and up. The glass on the lantern snaps closed.
Don't get left behind.
He takes 3 quick steps, then tosses the pouch. The prowlers are back in the water before the pouch even lands. As soon as it does, the fire starts to lick and curl itself around the wood. The guide breaks into a sprint, and so do the rest of us. The blaze grows, despite the heavy dampness from the lake. So, Cody, when we were playing and we had to hang back with Lou, all this stuff still happened because we were behind when we started seeing the bridge burn. So that's kind of cool that there's some continuity. These bridges aren't normal bridges, of course that's true. Nothing here is right. Hopefully they won't collapse with the flames. We stay on the guide's heels, almost too close for comfort. If he stops abruptly, we'll all crash into another, maybe even fall off the bridge. Then the world tilts. I was mid-stride when I put my foot down. The bridge isn't where it was. It lurches to one side, either because it's weakened or because it was pushed. Bimele and I manage to keep our ground, but Margaret falls to the ground. At least I thought that's what happened. She starts pouring at the bridge. Why didn't you read that out? My glasses fell off. I can't see. The guide, having regained his balance, presses on. He doesn't even bother to look at her. Bimele and I run to Margaret, scanning the bridge, but there's no sign of her glasses. The flames are growing thicker and closer, the heat life-sucking. Close enough to nip at her heels. I grab Margaret's arm.
Glasses aren't here anymore. We have to go or we'll lose the guide.
So yeah, last time we left Margaret behind to save Lou. Margaret squints up at me, her face paler than ever. She nods and stands, and we start after the guide again. As our storm of feet thunder across the boards, a silver sliver begins to rise into view just above the edge of the water.
It's the island.
The island, I squint? The island. I squint and suddenly make out the craggy forms of land and earth. I see it. We're almost there. Safety is at long last in sight. New energy surges through me. We push ourselves faster, longing to put these godforsaken bridges behind our backs. All at once, the bridge ends and our entire group rushes ashore. Earth, solid earth, a haven from the water. I catch my breath while still moving even further away from the dark shoreline. I can't believe we actually made it. Even more difficult is the idea that we're only halfway done. The night falls once more. We have to do it all again. A heavy arm crawls across, when night falls once more, we'll have to do it all again. A heavy arm falls across my shoulders, and I straighten to see Bimele smiling wearily at me.
Good work out there.
It's not the usual commendation of a job well done. There's a sadness, maybe even sympathy in his sentence. It ends flatly. Usually Bimele's comfort and good nature gives me at least the urge to smile, but right now it feels like a hollow victory. He moves to face Margaret, who is squinting at the surrounding area.
Good work out there.
The statement is more energetic. He's not willing enough to show a lack of confidence in front of her. Margaret smiles slightly.
How are you doing without your glasses?
Oh, I'll manage. I have to, after all. I'm not completely blind, thankfully, so I can muddle my way through.
Dang it. Why'd you have to go and lose your glasses?
There isn't anything much to see out on those bridges. As long as you stay away from the edge, you should be as safe as you were before.
That's true. It will be fine.
And then the guide's there. He moves so smoothly that he steps on the soft sand and nearly silent, and his dusky clothes blend with the thinning of the night.
The sun will rise soon. The fire on the bridge is the only reason this island isn't overrun with prowlers right now. However, they could still pose a threat.
Is that why you decided to set the bridges on fire? To make the island safer?
The guide looks at Margaret for what I suddenly realize might be the only second or third time all night.
Setting the bridges alight isn't an uncommon strategy. It has many uses.
He walks away, Margaret frowning at his retreating form. Come. The guide takes us to an area a bit further inland, but not too far from the water. Trees partly obscure our location, but there's enough room to watch the coast in case prowlers start to emerge. Essentially, it's a place where an ambush would be hard.
If any of you see anything at all, speak up. We don't want them to sneak up on us.
So this is all new territory for us. We've never got Margaret to the island before. Almost automatically, each member of the group turns into a different direction. For a brief second, I feel a flicker of pride. This night may have been awash with misery, but we're all still here for each other. As the sky continues to fade from pale purple to muted blue, the water stays silent. For the first time, nothing happens. It's a miracle. Suddenly, my chest is lighter and the air is fresher. The first pricks of light appear over the horizon, stinging my eyes after such a long journey through darkness. A sound catches my attention and I move to focus in its direction. The guide is opening the latch on his lantern again. He gently, almost respectively, blows out the light.
We no longer have to worry about the Nixie. It is over for today.
I'm almost unable to keep the tears of relief from pouring out at those words. We made it through the night, we survived. No one feels the need to speak. We look at each other, an understanding passing between us. Then we find our own space, as comfortable as we can get, and lie down for the rest we weren't sure would ever come. My eyes slowly blink open and readjust to the brightness, what little there is. The sun is obscured by a thick layer of fog, making it impossible to estimate the time of day. I prop up my elbows and push myself up. The ground is hard and rocky, but that isn't the only reason I'm eager to get on my feet. I check my surroundings. The harsh, craggy earth of the island is interlaced with twisting vines and gnarled branches. Beside me, Bemele and Margaret are still fast asleep. The guide, however, is nowhere to be seen. I realize that I don't recall seeing him lay down with everyone. It's likely that he left us hours ago. There's a creeping silence here. I can't help but shudder at the hollow, aching feeling inside me. It refuses to relent. I shift my weight back and forth, unsure of what to do with myself. Memories of last night's harrowing journey flicker through my mind. Bemele wakes suddenly, rising with alarm and startling Margaret as well. My mouth opens, then shuts, and after a moment of fumbling, a word finally escapes.
Hello.
Every time it's like, hello. Good morning. Say something positive. It's always the same hello. Bemele gives a gentle smile and makes his way over to me.
Morning.
Margaret follows suit. See? At least he says morning.
Is it even morning anymore?
No idea, Margaret. Margaret tries to speak lightheartedly. However, it doesn't do much to improve the mood. A pocket of quiet descends over us.
We should eat something soon. Margaret, do you have enough supplies?
Yes, I think I'll be alright with what I have.
Ta-dam.
That's a relief. The two of us have plenty of rations, though, so if you need anything, you can always ask.
Well, that's nice, because we had to share our rations with Lou. Margaret sighs and presses her fingers to her temples, acting as if she's fed up with us.
You know, the two of you need to stop looking out for everyone else so much.
That's the kind of thing that a person who's planning to backstab us would say. Who's feeling slightly guilty about it. Bemele winces at the statement without vocalizing what's on his mind. Margaret and I share a glance. This is about the person we left behind yesterday. The person we didn't help.
I'm sorry, I didn't intend.
It's not your fault.
It goes quiet between us once more. A distinct rustling of the leaves catches my attention as Margaret turns into the guide. The guide appears, emerging from the thicket. Margaret appears to be a little uncomfortable at his return. Bemele glares at him as he makes his way over.
The Nixie will not tread on land in daylight. However, being near the shoreline is still dangerous. If you leave the center of the island, remain cautious. Before the sun sets, I will be in this area. It would be wise to meet me here before nightfall.
So I wonder how much changes when you've got Margaret instead of having Lou.
Why did we have to leave him behind?
I sharply turn towards Bemele as he snarls and confronts the guide.
If you had just let him follow behind us, he would be alive.
The guide looks away, seemingly unaffected.
If all you're going to do is leave everyone to be lost, then why bother guiding us at all?
Despite Bemile's severe words, the guide apparently considers his piece here done. He turns towards the forested area from which he came.
Wait!
Bemile calls out to the guide, reaching towards him. Before he can make contact, I quickly place a hand on his shoulder. He lowers his arm to his side, though I can still feel wrath emanating from him. We stay this way until the guide disappears from view. Bemile begins to kick at the ground, spraying tiny pieces of gravel about.
I know you're angry, but regardless of our feelings, we need the guide. If he leaves us, we'll all die.
We will die.
And we've done so well with him?
Better than we would without him. I give him a cold glance. We won't even know what bridge to take without the guide. Bemile knows that. This needs to stop. There are people counting on us to make it back. And what of Margaret?
We can't afford to lose our way.
The anger etched into his expression fades into sadness.
Kika. You're right.
He weakly swats his hand in front of his face as if trying to shoo away his racing thoughts.
I can't stay here right now.
I nod, allowing him to leave alone. Beside me, Margaret releases a sigh.
Are you all right?
No, I'm not. Nothing is all right. And it will never get any better.
Well, aren't you a little ray of sunshine? Margaret sucks in a breath as she starts to get emotional. Before it can spill out of her, she turns on her heels and walks off in a different direction than the guides. Quietly, I speak. Oh, I can't go with Margaret. Well, I've done the Bemile and I haven't done alone. I'm going to go speak with the guide. I haven't done this one yet. I pull my hands into fists, steel my will, and start advancing in the direction the guide went. I push my way through the branches and reach the other shore of the island. I look for the guide, but he's nowhere in sight. How? Where could he have gone? I search the area further without success. The island is not in any way large. If I have not found him, it's only because he does not wish to be found. I sigh as all motivation leaves me. I think I simply need to be alone. I get an achievement. It seems as though my wish to be alone will be granted. There's no sign that they will be returning. A cold chill somehow whips its way down my back, despite the calm of the air. So is Margaret just walking around the island without her glasses on? We've already discovered that it's very craggy earth. She gonna trip over. Trust me, I know a thing or two about being bespectacled on craggy ground. I fall over all the time. That's with my glasses on. I keep my gaze on the dark ground, taking a breath so deep it stings the back of my throat, as I steadily empty my lungs and try to empty my mind of all thoughts. She's meditating. I don't know what I'm doing anymore. Nothing is straightforward. I find something familiar and powerful in my thoughts and latch on. The mission. I have to try and focus on the mission. I need to be strong. My eyes dart back up. Is someone watching? I wonder if I'm afraid of being seen struggling like this, or if I hope that I may not be on my own here. It doesn't matter. There's still nothing but the silent island. Boop, 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 boop. Boop. Time seems so indefinite around me, passing slowly. On this island, it almost seems to move slow as a stagnant pond. I shake my head, burying my thought. It's irrational, but I cannot bear to think of even old pond water without thinking of the monsters in it. There's the monsters. Monsters in the lake. It's quite inspirational text. I shake my head, bearing the thoughts irrational like everything old pond water, yeah. Gradually, my consciousness begins to include the world again. I do a few standard warm-up stretches, testing my body and mind. I don't know how long it's been, but I feel I've regained enough of my wits to continue on. I need to make sure everything's alright. I head through the wooded part of the island. There isn't anything that could be called a path, but I managed to pick my way through the bush quite well. Yeah, everyone in this game is just so positive, Cody. We've got that PMA happening. Through a Through a thinner stand of trees, I briefly catch sight of the guide standing on one of the beaches. He seems fine, but even though I'm sure he turned his head towards me, he makes no sense of acknowledging me. I continue my check without heeding that. After moving on, I find Bemele in a jagged clearing leaning against a tree. He's clearly noticed me and is looking my way, smiling. As I get closer, I can pick up on the sadness behind his jovial expression.
How are you faring? Any problems?
Everything is fine. I came to check on you.
How kind. I've calmed down since then.
Bemele had to take a chill pill.
I'm glad to hear that. Is there any way I can help or anything you'd like to say?
He raises an eyebrow at that, his grin becoming markedly playful.
I didn't expect to see you so worried about me, Kika.
I have to force myself not to avert my eyes at that comment, embarrassment flowing into me. Bemele notices my reaction. He does not draw attention to it, however. Instead, he throws his arms out wide with a sour expression.
Have you seen the guide?
Bemele is clearly asking out of a sense of obligation and makes no secret that he's not pleased to be discussing the guide. I nod in response.
I saw him earlier. He is the same as always.
Good, good. In that case, I'm going to stretch my legs for a bit. I feel stiff from standing in one place for so long.
I bid him a brief goodbye. Bemele waves as he departs. When I step into another clearing, I notice Margaret sitting quietly at the base of a tree. Margaret begrudgingly lifts her head as I approach, enabling me to see that her face is damp and tear-stained, her eyes red and puffy. She's been crying. I shift uncomfortably on my feet.
Has something happened?
Everything is fine. I came to check on you.
Well, that's nice.
She speaks somewhat curtly, but at least she no longer seems as depressed.
I'm happy to report that everything's in order on this front.
I'm glad.
Of course, I cannot truly believe that. Margaret isn't saying what's actually on her mind, but I have no other way to truly reach her.
I suppose it is.
My words come out slowly and hesitantly, as though she might change her mind if I bide my time. I want to do more, but I can't think of what else I can do for her.
Then goodbye.
If you need anything, I will be close by.
Yes, thank you. I'm sure I'll see you soon.
Is that a pun? Because you can't see anything. You don't have glasses anymore. Her response is sincere. It is enough to ease some of my worry. I smile, though weakly. With nothing else to say, I take my leave. I find that I've been pacing back and forth for quite some time. I finished my check a while ago, so now I've nothing to do but aimlessly wander. I'm overcome with restlessness. This island may be safer than the bridges, but this is still far from enough to ease my mind. I quickly sigh and decide to wait on my own. If I go back now, whoever I encounter will know that I don't want to be alone. That is more troubling than simply staying where I am. I sit down and silently listen to the ambience of the island as I wait for time to pass. I can only hope that this will all end before I can no longer keep myself together. The sun begins to descend in the sky, and the light starts to fade into the fog. Get ready, we're about to go out on the damn bridges again. I feel relieved that it's almost time to leave this island. A chill slips down my spine at the thought of what comes next, however. Bemele and Margaret soon arrive. Upon seeing me, she tries her best to greet me, though it's clear she's not doing well. Bemele gives me a half smile as he waves.
Hello, Kika.
Hey, Margaret.
Hello there.
Hey, Bemele. I wave back at them and walk over. I'm glad that they're here. I don't really want to be alone anymore.
Hello.
Hello. The atmosphere grows tense as the quiet stretches on. Margaret shifts around. Bemele seems torn between saying something and keeping the silence. Before too long, the guide arrives. His presence snuffs out all chance of conversing definitively. I keep my focus on steadying my breathing, bracing myself for what's ahead. All of us wait in an uncomfortable silence until night falls. We silently stand as one, forming a vigil of sorts. Our remaining lanterns illuminate the dark, prepared for tonight's journey. And yet, the way forward does not appear. The bridges haven't risen from the depths. So this is the same thing that happened when we were saving Lou. But when it was just the two of us, the bridges came up straight away. This didn't happen. I glance to my side. The guard does not look at all pleased. The corner of his mouth have a harsh bent as he briefly loses himself to heavy thoughts.
We must go to the shore.
He doesn't offer an explanation for why. Instead, he just walks off without us. I follow after the guide, my forehead creasing with swelling worry. Behind me, I hear Bemele and Margaret's unsure footsteps. The four of us press onto the shore. The dark waters lap at the edge of the sand, and as expected, the maze is still hidden beneath the surface. The guide grips his staff a little tighter, his knuckles turning ghostly white. He sucks in a breath of air like he's about to speak, but hesitates. We all stare at him expectantly. After a moment more, the guide is fed up with waiting.
The bridges are late. If they don't arrive as soon as darkness falls, there's no telling exactly how long it will be before they do.
No, not return to main menu. Although this is a save point. I hope it's not going to play out the same way as the Lou one did. Maybe that's why you can only ever save one of them. Bemele's face immediately sours and isn't able to stay silent about his feelings.
So we're going to waste our time standing idly by. There's hardly enough time to make the trip as it is.
What are you going to do, swim?
Complaining won't make these bridges come any sooner, though I sympathize with your frustrations. The wait had already been tense as it was. Not knowing how much longer it will last makes it that much more dreadful.
That's right, buddy. I'm still on that road to 100 subs. I've got... Actually, seeing as you brought it up, might as well talk about it. We've got 3... at the moment, we've got 2. I think there's a third merch design being made to be released when we hit the 100 subs. And then we've also got the 100 sub special video, which is just a highlight reel and some fan art and stuff. Yeah, we're on that road to 100 subs. I think we were on 84 or something the other day, and then YouTube went through and got rid of a lot of spam accounts. So we're back down to about 80, which, sure, it's annoying as far as the road to 100 goes, but I would much rather get rid of those spam accounts than have dead numbers there, I guess. But yeah, we're on that road, going strong, trying to get there.
Time is by far the least of our worries. On the bridges we are constantly moving, which makes it easier to avoid the prowlers. However, this island does not offer that luxury. We're
My body goes rigid as his words sink in.
More importantly, the bridges are raised above the waters. Nixie have difficulties pulling themselves up onto the bridges. The soft sloping of the shore will allow far more prowlers to drag themselves towards us. Not all will be as dangerous as the ones we've encountered thus far. However, we could easily be overwhelmed.
A pit forms deep in my stomach. I stare at him aghast. I had no idea the situation was that dire. I glance from the waterline to the trees. What I'm looking for, I don't know. A sign of what's to come, maybe?
I wonder if those fires had anything to do with this.
Bemele's words are biting as he wonders aloud. The guide answers Bemele firmly, wanting to put an end to this speculation.
No. Whatever magic controlling the bridges is inconsistent. Humans haven't found a way to impact it. We can only do temporary physical damage to the boards.
Bemele is still displeased. Margaret moves into the discussion. Her mood is rapidly declining as well.
Then what should we do? We shouldn't stay on the shore if the monsters could be coming towards us at any moment.
The guide closes his eyes and suddenly looks very worn down.
Staying in the center of the island is the safest option. However, there's the risk that we may not be able to reach the bridges when they do rise. Prowlers could have taken full control of the shore by then. Remaining here with our lanterns will ensure the prowlers cannot move freely.
My brows involuntarily knit together. I don't like the sound of taking additional risks in an area that's already so dangerous, but our options are pretty thin.
I will not be kept on this island for another day, so the shore is where I will be. You may wait at the edge of the forest, or even at the center of the island if you fear being attacked. If the prowlers come between us and you fail to make it to the bridges, I will leave you behind.
Bemele spits hatefully under his breath.
Of course you would.
True. Generosity is not something I would expect from the guide, but that's not the conversation we need to be having at the moment. The guide has made his decision, and we must make ours.
If you were staying by the shore, perhaps I could be positioned somewhat further back from you, and then the others could stay further back still. That would keep us safer, without having any major gaps of darkness between us and the shore.
Good suggestion, Kika.
I'd say that's likely our best option, and we don't have time to come up with any other way regardless.
Settled on the matter, the three of us begin to move our way... buttons. To move away from the guide. He pays little attention to us, instead silently fixing his eyes on the water. I take my place in the middle of the shore, while Bemele and Margaret hover closer to the island's core, on the line between dirt and sand. After getting a sense of where they are, I turn my gaze ahead. At first, I think I'm being fooled by the fog. There are several white dots. That's alright, man. See you later, dude. There are several white dots playing along the edges of the water. Dark globes begin to surface, and I see them for what they are. Eyes. So many white, dribbling eyes gleaming sharply against the pitch-black bodies as the Nixie bob up and down. They surface and disappear in a loop, each time more sets of eyes and closer, surveying us more intently. Then they cackle. The sound is atrocious, gurgling, then turning high-pitched as they seem to take full stock of us. The lights in their eyes somehow seem brighter at the first of the Nixie dig their claws into the sand and begin dragging themselves upon the shore. I plant my feet firmer. A shrill shriek pierces the air, accompanied by a telltale hiss. I whip my head backwards towards the sound, only to be greeted by coal-black darkness. I cry out desperately into the void where Margaret and Bemele stood.
What happened?
There's a silence, then the best sound possible. Margaret's voice replies, albeit a little shakily.
There was a prowler in the woods. I didn't notice it until it was already too close to me. I dropped my lantern when I saw it. The light was enough to drive it away, but now it's gone.
Damn it, now we've lost
Shattered.
another lantern. Damn it, Margaret! What are you doing? I stretch in anger. You're useless. I swerve my head back to make sure the shore is still clear before I sprint over to release them from the darkness with my own light. Margaret stares at the ground dejectedly when I arrive. Bemele has his hand placed on her shoulder.
I didn't see the thing either. The monster blended in far too well with the dark, crooked trees of this place.
He gives me a sad smile as I approach the two closer.
We can make a small fire for light.
Margaret sniffs loudly.
That may work for now, but what will we do once we're back on the bridges?
We will manage.
I speak firmly, trying to assure her. I can't even guess how effective the attempt was. Bemele begins to gather dry twigs, stones, and grass to craft a fire with. Margaret moves to help him, though she still looks terribly upset. I feel awful. It wasn't her fault. We dig a few inches down into the sandy soil before making an edging with the rocks to stop the fire from giving us a repeat of last night. I layer the fuel quickly and light a match at the base of the pit. So is that just a way to make it so that we don't have 3 lanterns again? Because when we were playing through with Lou, he didn't have a lantern, so we didn't have to worry about his breaking. It just seems to be like they're setting it up so that it can follow the same storyline. The grass ignites easily and showers the area with enough light to keep anything else that may be lurking in the forest at bay. I release a discreet sigh. We're truly lucky no one was injured or lost during this ordeal. I keep that thought to myself, however. Hearing it would only make Margaret feel worse.
You should go back to your position, Kika. It will all be for nothing if we can't make it onto the bridges in the first place.
Right.
I force myself to sound bold.
We're going to get through this.
Margaret attempts to smile at me, and Bemele waves as I cautiously back up to my original position. I return my full focus to the shore. As we fear, this is becoming a pressing situation. More prowlers rise from the water while my attention was on those two. They've surrounded the guide on both sides. The only way to gain distance from them would be to delve further into the island, yet the guide shows no signs of giving up his position. He remains where he is, resolving to keep all the monsters near him in his sight. I grow more unnerved the longer I watch this. The guide seems impervious to the dangers of Sinlos. This is the first case where I can't see whether he will continue to be fine as always or not. It's a distressing notion. As they creep ever closer, I can't stay silent any longer.
Your safety is most important. Consider retreating.
He doesn't face me, but replies,
I cannot do that. Nixie recognize signs of weakness. Backing away will only increase the odds of them attacking.
I grip my lantern tighter as I swallow hard. What can I do? As if to answer my own question, a thought whispers into my mind, and I look down at the lantern in my hand. I could throw it. As long as I don't let it go too far down the shore, it doesn't seem plausible that a Nyx could take it. But if I do lose the lantern, especially after Margaret lost hers only moments ago, then throw the lantern. I'm going to play it the same way that we learnt in the last episode. If you watch, he does eventually get away from the Nyx, but he's injured and then has to take, he either walks too slow or takes pain medication. If he takes pain medication, he gets weary and he gets lost. Throwing the lantern was the best idea in the last game. I nod firmly to myself, set on the decision. I've seen the guide perform the move right in front of me. I know it's not an impossible feat. Now something has to be done. I inch my way over to the most advanced group of Nixie. They drift slowly as they attempt to get behind the guide. I'm of no concern to them, at least for the time being. The guide spots me and we make eye contact for a moment. He doesn't say anything and abruptly fixes his gaze elsewhere. It gives me the impression that he's aware of what I'm planning on doing. He's ignoring me because he doesn't want the Nixie to recognize a coming threat. I steady my arms and assume a strong stance. I stop for a heartbeat to take a deep breath, then jump forwards. Jump forward a small way, toss my lantern towards the group of Nixie on the guide's right side. They're all caught completely off guard, practically wheezing as they scatter and dive back into the depths below. None even attempt to steal my lantern, which is a great relief. The guide seizes the moment to swing his staff at the group of Nixie on his left. The light edging close to them, combined with the general chaos, disturbs the creatures enough to frighten them. The left group joins the right and retreat. The guide observes the waterline, making certain that they've all crawled back into the water, and then releases a small sigh. He walks over to retrieve my lantern off the sand where it landed, keeping his eyes fixed steadily behind him. Attentively, I take a few steps towards him. He extends his arm forward, offering my lantern back to me. I've never gotten this close to the guide before. He's never allowed it. Being in his presence this way feels unclear. I don't have the words to describe what it turns inside of me. His eyes are expectant, impatient, and I waste no more time. I move to accept it, but I flinch before I can grasp
What's
it.
wrong?
His face hardens, scrutinizing, an unexpected reaction. I banish whatever expression was on my face and take hold of what's mine.
It is nothing.
He lets it go, though does not make any attempt to leave. I don't believe it's because he's worried about leaving me in darkness. He still suspects something's wrong. The guide watches closely as I set the lantern aflame once more. Its light gently washes over me and I smile at the sight. This tool I hold is one of the exceedingly few comforts one can have on Sinlos, and I do not wish to part with it again. He is still here, and I begin to worry the guide intends to admonish me for what I've done. I may have let my emotions show on my face because he starts to speak.
Keeping a hold of your light is crucial. However, if you took no risk, your only way across could have been lost. It wasn't an empty self-sacrifice. In your position, neither option was correct. Neither was wrong.
Our enigmatic leader nods, and upon finishing up his thought, he returns to his original place. I stare flabbergasted at the guide's back. By chance, I was put in a circumstance that allowed our values to align, but never would I have expected him to acknowledge that I'd made an acceptable decision. I stopped myself from getting further distracted. Instead, I glanced down at my light and realized the glow looks different. I wince. There's a large crack wickedly curving up the back. I'm thankful that it still works. Still, I fear that it will not hold out until the morning. I look forlornly at the fragile glass surrounding the simple flame. In a way, so this is all the same story. Yeah, bridges have come up, so we've got to start running.
Come on!
At least that bit, anyway, was exactly the same as when we had Lou with us, except for the fact we had to get rid of Margaret's lantern. Margaret's shout cries through, cut straight through my thoughts. She's advancing towards me, holding a heavy stick with the end set on fire as a makeshift torch. The sight is striking.
It won't last long! We need to get through now!
She needs not say any more. The three of us push our way forward as we advance. Margaret relays her plan.
We'll toss the branch when we get close. The smoke spewing off this thing is making it even harder to see than usual. So you tell me when it's time, Kika.
I can do that.
The shore approaches closer and closer, and every single one of the Nixie turn their attention towards our small group. Now, after alerting Margaret, she gives her all to hurl the flame ahead of us while avoiding setting the bridge itself on fire. The monsters flee from the torch and a path is clear. We waste not one moment sprinting towards the bridges. With the others near my side, I amble back into the maze. We don't stop until there's a considerable distance between us and the shore. It is there that we encounter the guide. Upon seeing his figure, I hide a sigh of relief. We haven't been left behind. Our arrival does not change the guide's empty expression. He does not say or do anything, instead allowing all of us to catch our breath. Bemele starts to laugh incredulously through uneven breaths.
Such recklessness. I can hardly believe it worked.
Yeah, we was awesome. Margaret chimes in, equally as amazed.
I don't know how we managed to do nothing wrong. That feels far more fitting for this journey.
Yes, you could have burnt your fingertips off. Or perhaps the bridges could have gone up in flames.
Margaret looks at him curiously. Bemele gives her a wink.
That would have been the outcome if I was handling the torch, you think?
Margaret's lips quirk up into a smile. We treasure the moment of triumph for a little bit longer before the guide ends the silence.
We need to start walking. We've already lost much time as it is.
I quickly straighten myself out and mull over the current situations. We start to consider how we're going to travel now that we only have 2 lanterns.
I can stay ahead in between the guide's light and yours. I will be fine there.
At that I become fraught with worry. I look over at Bemele, concern rioting through my body as I wonder how he'll fare being so far away from a light source.
Well, the 3 of us could walk together. If there's one person close by, I can't imagine it would make much of a difference having another. Furthermore, I believe we've all taken enough risks for each other already for this to not be a problem.
Margaret, her consideration touches me. There we go. Putting the correct, not pronunciation, the correct lilt on it, it just changes that to a very different sentence. I smile gratefully at her. Bemele and I confer with our eyes before silently agreeing with one another.
Okay.
We nod.
We'll do that then. Thank you.
Other than having a bit of crowd as opposed to entirely straight line, our journey moves ahead as it did the night before. The silent night creeps along as we carefully move through the thick fog, making certain not to bump into one another. Then my lantern blinks and fizzles out. The 3 of us gasp simultaneously and I hold my breath like time will stop with my breathing. To my great relief, the light flutters back on. The air I'd been anxiously holding in releases as a sigh.
What's going on?
The guide has halted, but it does not bother to turn around as he asks the question.
It was nothing.
I watch as he shifts his head back to look at us. The stare he gives is probing and deeply unnerving. It's quite possible he does not believe me. I return his gaze, my expression blank. We remain locked in this moment. I can feel his patience with me slipping away. He chooses not to spend any longer waiting for an answer that will not come. The guide faces his back to us once more. He acts without a word, but I know he isn't satisfied. Our small group shares anxiety-ridden looks as the guide moves ahead. I look down at my lantern. The crack seems larger than ever. I feel as though I'm cracking with it. There's nothing I can do to fix it should it go out for good.
We need to keep going. We shouldn't speak of this.
I can feel that they're apprehensive over the situation and undoubtedly curious as to how it happened in the first place. However, this is not the time. I do not want to draw attention to this for fear of the guide catching on. The chattering of the Nixie bubbles... Oh, wrong page. The chattering of the Nixie bubbles up out of the darkness and I gulp harshly. The thought crosses my mind that they too have noticed what just transpired. We walk for quite a bit longer. The voices whispering amongst each other has died down, but the squishing and clicking of prowlers has replaced them. It's difficult to trace the exact origin of the sound. All I know is that it's far too close for comfort. The guide stops abruptly, bringing us to an awkward halt. Luckily, there's no impact between the 3 of us.
Stay where you are.
My eyes are drawn to the guide. He's making small movements, cautiously pressing his foot into the boards in front of him at different spots. Could something be wrong with the bridge itself? My theory is proven correct.
The boards ahead are unstable. They may break when stepped on.
Is there another path?
This is our path. Move slowly and do not have 2 people on the same board at a time. I will cross first. When I find a stable section, I will inform you. Then you will follow my lead.
disappointed. So yeah, this is exactly the same as when we just played through with Lou.
Why are the bridges this way?
So unless
they can be burned into ash?
There likely isn't.
The unnatural black water has a great deal of magic within. That is the most reasonable source of the bridges. If this maze is formed without an intelligent creator, that would explain its treacherous nature.
Alright, so it seems to be that only what Margaret has to say that's going to be any different from the normal, exactly the same as what we had with Lou. The guide breaks his cautious steps, testing the security
Where
of the
I am
bridge.
now is solid. You only need to reach this position.
We'll be right there. To ensure that there is enough light for all of us, I will go second. We need to keep enough distance between each other to not break the boards.
Beverly elects to lead and starts going forward, inching gingerly across the trembling boards. After there's some distance, I begin to follow, focused on keeping my movements steady. Margaret is the last to leave. The three of us carefully navigate the creaking, soggy wood. We attempt to keep to the guide's path in hope that the boards will hold. I feel my foot lay heavy on a board. It bends air-raisingly under me, and I wince as I slowly step off of it. I wonder if we should be crawling on all fours to spread out our weight over a wider space, but that might make us more vulnerable to the creatures. My focus is broken when I hear a shout from ahead. Bemile's foot has snapped right through the bridge. Nope, I'm not going to pull you back, buddy. Despite every cell in me screaming to help, I force myself not to make any sudden movements. Bemile lifts his foot up from the cusp of the water and places it back on the board in front of him. Thank goodness, the entire section could have collapsed. Margaret looks at us, clearly
Part
concerned.
of the board broke. Everyone is fine, however. You should avoid that section completely.
All right.
We're still in much danger as we stand here. I encourage him to begin moving once more. I make sure to skip over the broken board myself. When I come to it, as I pass by the hole, I catch a bit of movement in the water. But when I look more closely, there's nothing there. After a few more agonizing minutes, everyone reaches the other side of that trap. Each of us three mutter various expressions of relief. There isn't a word from our guide. We continue our journey across the bridges, sharing small sporadic bits of conversation until we're plunged into darkness. I immediately come to a screeching halt that almost makes the two near me lose their footing. I look down at my lantern. It's gone as dark as the water. The three of us stare at it, silently pleading as a few moments pass, and yet the lantern remains cold and lifeless. In desperation, I jiggle the lantern, hoping that somehow will click and the light will return. Nothing happens. I feel the others' nerves climbing with every second. They shift uncomfortably as they watch me pathetically attempt to relight it. We are quiet, still hoping that the guide won't notice. I cease shaking and tap the side of the cracked glass. When that doesn't yield any results, I open the lantern itself and look over the internal workings. I cannot reach inside. Despite its appearance, the metal has retained the heat from before and I'd be burned. As the darkness stretches on, I frantically try to figure out what the problem is from sight alone.
Your light is gone.
The indifferent tone of the speaker is unmistakable. No, not yet. I look up from my work to see the guide is approaching us. I'm at a loss for words. He comes near and the edge of his light shelter us like a blanket.
Relighted.
My hands begin to tremble. I know that it won't do anything, but I do as demanded and hope for a miracle. I attempt to get the inner core to catch flame, but the lantern refuses to comply no matter what I do. The guy's eyes widen as the full scope of the situation dawns on him. My two companions start nervously fidgeting and whisper about possible solutions, but I hear each one getting shot down.
What are we going to do now?
Margaret's voice comes out shaky. I look at the guide forlornly. We're completely at his mercy now. If he has any to spare. He coldly surveys the three of us. After silently deliberating, he narrows his eyes until there's slits in his face.
I will allow one of you to remain in my light.
One?
That's insanity! Your staff creates more than enough light for the four of us. We could easily follow at a distance you would feel comfortable with.
I don't make deal with peasants!
Someone who wants to live will share their light with no one. I will not share my light with three.
He almost
After
snarls
everything
at us.
that's happened, all that we've done...
Stop. If you take so...
Margaret's completely frozen, her mind racing to process everything.
Then, what about two? Could you please keep 2 of us safe?
The guide sharply shakes
I will
his head.
allow 1 and no more. 2 will be left behind.
Finality rings out.
Lingering at a distance far behind my light will leave you vulnerable. The wisest option is to continuously move, even if it means going another way.
Bemele glowers at the guide hatefully. Beside me, Margaret begins to whisper something to herself. I can't make out what it is. A torrent of thoughts rip through my mind as I try to find some other way. So yeah, last time we went with him, and Lou found his own way. And then when we tried to let them, Lou go with him or Bemele go with him, and I'd stay behind, the guide's like, no, that's stupid. You should come with me. So there was no way around it.
Kika.
You see, but my body stiffens. The guide has never referred to me by my name this way. It is jarring enough to gain my attention, even amidst the rising
You are the
panic.
most likely to survive. The offer is for you.
My eyes widen even further. No, I don't want that. I can't be the only one who... No. I turn my eyes to see him. This should not be happening. They should be going, not me. They should be the ones who remain safe.
I'm nowhere near as sharp as you are. We both always knew that.
It's true.
My lantern broke because I foolishly dropped it. And I've already lost my glasses, so...
Meh. Woe is me. But I want to see what happens when Margaret makes it. And there's no viable reason that if Margaret and Bemele head off by themselves, there's no reason that it would be Margaret that would survive. That makes no sense. I shake my head, refusing to watch them give up so easily. I turn to the guide's face one last time, begging him mentally. He is empty and unflinching.
It needs to be done. This is what it means to cross Sinlos.
The heavy words sink into me as I stare towards the void that eagerly awaits the 2 of us. I don't think it's going to make a difference, but I'm going to say I won't go. The guide sucks in breath, clearly
Being
disappointed.
without light is dangerous, even if you are close to another. The one who goes with me has no guarantee of making it across. You risk this entire journey being for naught. The correct decisions need to be made. Everyone should be aware of that.
His words cut deep. I have no logical reason to object to me going if my only solution is choosing another for the same position. I bite my lip, my mind madly whirring on the matter for a moment. Then I bow my head. I swallow my objections. No matter how painful it is to come to terms with, we have to be pragmatic. I would have encouraged the decision if another was being spared. Like, how can I say that it's wrong now? The guide waits for breath. Waits for a breath. When I say nothing, he takes it as compliance and nods. Then he simply walks off without even a goodbye to the others.
I'm sorry. I couldn't do anything for you.
Margaret's voice is quivering.
Please, go after the guide.
Bemele gives me a courageous half smile.
We'll find our own way across. The shore can't be far off after all the walking we've done.
Yeah, but how you gonna find it? You have lights. I wipe my face on my sleeve and
I
compose
will wait
myself.
for you on the shore.
This goodbye can't go on for much longer, with all of us standing still without any light. I burn both their faces into my memory for reasons I don't dare think about, then I force my shaky legs to follow after the guide. I follow behind the guide at the edges of his light. I walk listlessly, each step feeling heavier than the last. Complete sense of emptiness overwhelms me and I move along, almost like a puppet on strings, trudging on hollowly as I attempt to understand what I'm even doing with myself, what I'm doing with my life. I harden my face and attempt to purge every thought from my mind except for the ones pertaining to the bridges and how to successfully cross them. I have to survive. I must. What they've all sacrificed cannot be for nothing, and I'm still needed. After hours of navigating the complex maze of bridges, the faint light of day creeps into view. The guide increases his pace and I cautiously follow suit. The sun continues to rise, as does our speed along with it. The odds decrease with every step we have to take. Our persistence pays off when the silhouette of land appears on the horizon. My heart pounds at the sight. It feels unbelievable. It's unbelievable! I race across the bridges, trying desperately to keep up with the guide's light-edged figure in clear sight. What? I race across the bridge, desperately trying to keep the guide's light-edged figure in sight. I run as fast as I can possibly manage without slipping on the boards. We run across the entire way, spurred on by the shoreline rapidly approaching. Miraculously, I feel my feet plunged into dirt. I stumble forwards, nearly collapsing onto the ground while trying to catch my breath. It feels as though we've come out of a long dream. We made it. After a moment of processing everything that just happened and pulling myself together, I rise fully to my feet and stand tall. I turn back towards the lake. The fog drifts across the empty, stagnant waters, as menacing as when I first laid eyes on it. I can't bear to tear my eyes from the sight. It's as though reality halts as I stare deeply at the surface. I shake away the sensation. I'm alive. I've made it across. And now I'll be able to unite the villages and remove the brigadiers. But at what cost? My mind turns itself over. I can still faintly feel wet, rigid hands on my ankle. A ghostly reminder of the Nixie. I know the hands aren't real, but that doesn't loosen their grip. I wait at the edge of the shore, looking out to the vast expanse of the lake. I stand steadfast, unable to be swayed. I refuse to move on until the light of the sun finally covers the land and the bridges disappear underneath the water. I will be here for them until that final moment. I feel that the guide is rather displeased at my continued presence. Despite getting such an impression, however, he still remains close enough for me to reside in his light. The moments tick on and on. The night continues to shrink with each passing minute. I perk up when I hear something. It isn't a whisper under the surface or the rush of wind through the trees. It's the sound of footsteps, I'm certain of it. And they're coming from the lake. My hearts begin to pound.
We're over here!
I shout down the bridge and wave my hands in an attempt to garner the attention of anyone who's out there, regardless of the dense fog making it impossible to see. It hardly matters, as I hope desperately that whoever it is on the bridge finds their way before it's too late. The echoes of footsteps grow louder and I can't resist the temptation to head out into the unknown to meet with them moments sooner. I step onto the boards once more. My breath remains locked inside as the footsteps draw nearer still, and then out of the mist emerges Margaret. The air releases, and my eyes start to brim with tears. Margaret is alive. She made it. She draws to a stop and nearly stumbles from halting so quickly. She's grinning and almost laughing in joy. I quickly wipe my damp eyes and smile at her.
I'm so glad to see you.
We rush off the bridge with haste, eager to put this night behind us. With that, we truly arrive on the shore. As the thrill of the moment dissipates, I have to acknowledge that she's alone. I turn my eyes back out to Sinlo, scanning as much of the area as I can see, silently pleading for a glimpse of a sign. There's a tug at my sleeve. I turn my attention back towards Margaret slowly. Her eyes are drenched with tears and drooping with sorrow. Her lip quivers lightly as she shakes her head, before squeezing her eyes shut to keep too many droplets from escaping. The tears from earlier make their return, spill over and stream down my face. Bemele is gone. He died out in the darkness. I slowly slink backwards, away from the lake. I don't want to be anywhere near these bridges. I clench my fists together lightly. Margaret follows along as I step back, still tightly gripping my sleeve as if she never wants to let go. My turmoil abruptly ends at the sound of the guide's voice. You can't stay here. There is nothing left for you here. You must return to the world and leave this place behind. All of my words are stuck sorely in my throat, and I'm completely parched and my mouth is threatening to close in on itself again. He fills the silence once more.
I expect to never see you again.
The guide looks at me harshly, almost pleading, as he gazes into my eyes. All I can offer is a slow, weak nod. I don't want this to be the way things are. I can't accept it. I'm consumed by a whirlpool of thoughts. I wasn't able to help anyone as I continue to stare at the guide. Tears well up in my eyes and threaten to spill over. He gives me no acknowledgement at all. I wipe the feeling from my face completely. I must continue on. I have no other choice left before me. On quaking legs, I march forward solemnly into the forest. Margaret follows silently behind. I have no idea what she's thinking now. What she experienced this night will likely forever remain a mystery to me. Without stopping or turning around, I close my eyes and murmur to myself, it's a sorrowful goodbye to all those lost to the lake, who couldn't even say the word themselves.
Farewell.
Right. So we got Margaret across, and there wasn't a lot of choices for it to make, so I don't feel like we need to go back and change anything. We tried to save everyone in the last episode, and that just doesn't work. Like, there's no real choices that save everyone. One of them, either Lou or Margaret, needs to die. And then whether you pick Lou or Margaret, it changes a few things. Like, as I was saying, on the island, Lou never had a lantern, because we found him just crawling on the bridges. So we didn't have to worry about losing his lantern somewhere. We still threw the lantern, cracked it, all of that island waiting for the bridges to come up stuff happened. Walking over the weak wood happened. The lantern dying happened. Bemele and whoever it was, Lou or Margaret, going off by themselves happened. And it was Lou that made it. Like, Bemele dies both times. So I was a little bit disappointed that the storyline didn't change a heck of a lot, whether you've got Margaret or Lou. It's still an amazing... Like, the little changes make sense, and it's still an amazing game. I was just a little bit disappointed that Lou or Margaret really didn't make much of a difference. But this is the first time we've got Margaret all the way across. So let's finally find out if we can learn anything about why Margaret needed to get across. With a solemn heart, I at last arrived at Hema. They were grateful to see me, for it was a desperate situation indeed. The urgency meant that my mind was occupied with other matters. I worked tirelessly to aid Hemia's own guards in forcing back the brigadiers. But during the moments of calm when the sun went down, I would still remember the lake. The villagers were alarmed when I arrived on my own, but it did not take them long to guess what must have happened to Bemele. Having to recount the terrible story was almost more than I could endure. Yet I know it'll be even worse when I must tell my fellow guards back home. They deserve to hear the truth from me, regardless of how I feel. Margaret and I parted ways before I arrived at Hemia. She did not say where she would be going or what she would be doing. She did, however, put on a smile as she departed, which I felt was more for my sake than her own. So I still don't learn anything about Margaret. I hope she is well wherever she is. I would like to think that somehow we may see each other once more on another day. While receiving payments for his services, the guide must give a full report for those who both succeeded and failed to cross the lake. I was finally able to learn the stranger we met on the bridges, Lou. As the guide predicted, he did not survive. He had requested to cross and had been denied. He must have been truly desperate to attempt the crossing alone. So yeah, that's why the guide was saying that we're not allowed to rescue Lou. Whoever tries to rescue Lou will be left behind to fend for themselves, because Lou had been begging the guide to take him across the bridges, and the guide didn't think that he would survive, so kept refusing him. So when Lou tried to do it by himself, the guide's like, no, I told you, you can't make it out here, I'm not going to save you. I can only pray that those who cared for him will learn the truth of what happened. I have not seen or heard the guide since then. He'll remain obscured in that realm of fog and fear, a mysterious light off in the distance that is ever out of reach of the real world. I worry about when I must return home to my usual life. It will be difficult for me to continue as things were before. One thing I know for certain is that my village elder must be told that no one is to ever cross Sinlos again. I've already told the Hemia leaders the same. Not a single more person should have to experience what we did. Its darkness will remain with me for the rest of my days. Though so much was lost, I try to believe that our lessons will keep others from suffering the same way, and in the end, something might be gained. Right. So that is all possible endings for Lake of Voices. I'm saying all possible endings for Lake of Voices because I do not believe it is possible to get everyone across. If the links are always the link is in the description. If you manage to get everyone across, just kind of like screenshot or capture that last little bit going through when it says like who made it and who didn't, and I will bow down to you as the undisputed master of Lake of Voices. I cannot figure out how to do it, but hopefully you enjoyed the video. I really did enjoy this game. It is a lovely game. It's very well written. Slight annoyance with the story thing, how it didn't change very much. But other than that, it is still a lovely game. Brilliant voice acting. The art style is amazing. And I had a lot of fun with it. Hopefully you had a lot of fun as well. If you did enjoy the stream, or if you're watching the videos later on and you had fun with the videos, please do give the stream a thumbs up. Share the videos around. It really does help me out quite a lot. If you have any more games you want me to play, whether it's a live stream or a pre-record, chuck any comments, questions, suggestions down in the comments section. And as always, for right now, have a good day, have a good life, and I'll catch you all down the road. I didn't do the transition, so you guys are still watching me sit here going, woo, that was a good stream. Alright, well, bye.